Uh, Chokehold Policing Batman. This book was written by Paul Butler and published in 2017. The books describe the plight of African Americans, especially how law enforcement agencies, the political class, and white voters treat African Americans. The first two chapters makes the reader aware that above three types of people deliberately destroy the image of African Americans. It can be said that the reputation of African Americans has been damaged so that they are unfairly punished and scored. Therefore, this book makes readers realize that although African Americans are portrayed as crimes, they are not symbols of crime. Um, Two chapter summary. Uh, Chapter 1 proposes that African Americans are deliberately considered criminals. The author firmly believes that the desire to control African Americans makes the police extremely powerful. Not only are they often abused by the police, but also by many members of society. Chapter two introduces the nature of the tactics used by the police to control African Americans. African Americans feel treated like criminals most of the time because private citizens usually own guns. African police are allowed to shoot and kill, and it can said that the main motivation for licensing is to ensure that police officers can protect themselves when dealing with armed and dangerous criminals. Despite this, many law enforcement officials abuse their privileges, resulting in the death of hundreds of African Americans due to extrajudicial killings. I totally agree with the author views that African Americans are not inherently criminals. It is true that some African Americans are engaged in criminal acts, but this does not mean that they are all criminals. To be sure, the analysis of the author's arguments led people to believe that the right voter, the political class, and the law enforcement agencies are determined to ensure that African Americans are considered symbols of crime. I'm, I'm afraid I must disagree with this view because the author um, did not provide uh, did not provide sufficient evidence to support this allegation. In fact, he is responsible to believe that even if part of facts are facts, uh, the author views on this issue may be based on power, a certain level. In view of this, it is worth mentioning that books make readers realize that the considerable numbers of imprisoned African Americans in jail for crimes they have never committed. Therefore, the large number of African Americans in prison does not mean that this particular group has a higher tendency to commit crime. Instead, the prevalence of this situation shows that law enforcement agencies uh, and the political class are unfairly contributing the unfair imprisonment of African American men. Since a lot of time, racism has been widespread in the United States. Unfortunately, much progress has been made in minimizing its prevalence in this country. However, this problem has not been eliminated because its roots in American society. African Americans are one of the groups affected by racism. Law enforcement agencies, some government officials, and most white voters has uh, exacerbated the crisis. It is worth noting that the author reports that this figure plays a key role to turning African Americans into criminals in groups. Of course, their influence led to just mass incarcerations of African Americans. Likewise, the destruction of the reputations of African Americans has made many people the victims of extrajudicial executions. In view of this, non-government organizations need to increase their investment in human rights advocacy to minimize the current level of racism. Accordingly, the US government needs to produce police and system to reform the ways law enforcement agencies and other civil defense perform their duties. In particular, law enforcement personnel and civil defense as the sex of racism will be punished in accordance with the laws, and the levels of the punishment should be commensurate with the crime. As a result, in the future, the prevalence of uh, racism will be gradually declined.